Why did you think there was nothing valuable in that conversation then? It seems like JP's position is a response to that. Okay. Let me give you an example of valuable inquisitiveness versus valueless or worthless inquisitiveness, okay? So somebody says, I'm trying to do this on the fly and it's going to be horrible, so I don't give a fuck. I should never be opening Notepad, okay? Somebody says, do you think the internet is bringing us together or pushing us apart? Okay. So that worthless inquisitiveness is like, well, when you say is the internet pushing us apart, well, what do you mean by the internet? Do you mean like your ability to call for Ubers? Do you mean that your ability to chat with people online? Do you mean hospitals communicating with each other? What do you mean by the internet? And then when you say like bringing us together, pushing us apart, well, that's a really interesting concept, isn't it? Like bringing us together, how? Like in some ways it doesn't bring us together, and in other ways it brings us together more. And when you say pushing us apart, well, haven't we always been pushed apart? I don't know. There's a thing where you ask a question and you ask a question and you ask a question, and I feel like in life, all of life has this kind of like tension and release that I think is seen almost everywhere. Like it's in narrative structure for film, tension, 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 and then climax is release. It's in music, obviously. You're building tension and you're resolving it. And I think even conversationally, I think there's a bit of tension and release. I feel like when you're doing this inquisitive thing, I think that it should be a tension and release. So when you're asking questions, the point of asking the question is to resolve it into something meaningful later on, which is going to be you explaining why you asked the question and how you would answer the question. So if somebody would say, like, do you think the internet is bringing us together or pushing us apart? You might say something like, well, it's interesting. What do we mean by bringing us together or pushing us apart? In some ways, the internet helps us be brought together more than it ever has before. For instance, I can talk to people on the other side of the planet that I've never been able to speak with before. And in other ways, it's pushing us apart because, well, now why would I see a person in real life when that person can just be met with online in a digital chat room. So you're questioning it, you're giving examples, and then there would be like some kind of like release, some bringing together at the end where it's like, I think in some ways the internet is bringing us together more than it ever has before. And I think that we can see that in society. For instance, when you see English is like the pervasive language of the planet, when you see people listening to the same music across the planet. And I think this is a wonderful thing. I think it's cool that the internet has brought us together in these ways that have never been brought together before. It used to be that stepping into another country was like stepping into another world. Now stepping into another country, like the language and the culture and the memes and the YouTube videos and everything can resemble where you're from, even if you're halfway across the world. And in some ways it's pushing us apart more than it ever has before. Now people will sit in their home for days or weeks at a time, and the only person they ever see is the DoorDash deliverer. But they talk to friends online, but they don't ever see them in real life. And I think that there's something that's lost there in terms of like genuine human interaction when you're only interacting with people, on a Discord chat box, right? So I think like that answer, like the last half of that, it would be like a tension and release kind of thing. Where, okay, well, let's inquire a little bit. What do we mean when we say bringing us together, pushing us apart? And then let's expand on it a little bit. There's like a perverted idea of inquiry where you just ask, and you don't actually resolve anything. The point of asking is just to avoid answering a question or to infinitely obfuscate and never commit to a position. And I just think I think it's boring.